Phoenix. It is the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. That time again, late night news, 9 to midnight Central, 10 to 1 Eastern. We got a jam-packed show for you coming up at the 5 after marker. We're going to have Chris Pinto, the writer and director of the America's Secret Beginning series. And since we only have an hour with him, although we want to focus on the brand new one, Eye of the Phoenix, I know we have a bunch of new listeners. I know that we have a bunch of younger people that may not be as deeply educated into the occult beginnings of this country and the occultic architecture. So I'm going to try to go through not only the New Atlantis very quickly, and of course Riddles in Stone, but this latest one right here, Eye of the Phoenix, which I've just recently watched, and it's excellent. They're all three of them are excellent. I mean, they're all almost 3 hours long. So again, we're going to try to condense almost 9 hours of information into a 45-minute or so interview. Then we're going to focus on some news. Now, I've been hyping Gordon Brown up. I mean, I think I've been all over Brown more than any other media personality in this country. Perhaps Europe's been more on Brown, but nobody, I haven't heard anything. I listen to a lot of mainline radio. Even Alex hasn't talked that much about Gordon Brown. There he is with Barack Obama. Well, the only person that's really given this any kind of a perspective is Lou Dobbs. Not only did he talk about the quote-unquote global New Deal we discussed yesterday and the day before, but he actually did a story called Obama's New World Order with him and Brown sitting together. And Gordon Brown, of course, has given several New World Order speeches. It's on the front page of many mainline publications out in the UK. It's not even an open secret. And although I don't believe, I watched about 20 minutes of his speech before our Congress today. Let me repeat that. Before our Congress today, okay? And he said New World several times. He fear-mongered with climate change. He talked about a new global banking society. I mean, this is it, folks. Believe the hype. So we're going to talk about that in the second hour. We're going to take your calls in the second half of both the second and third hour, wide open phone lines. The call-in line is 866-582-9933. But again, we're going to spend some time on the America's Secret Beginning series, which we have over at InfoWars.com. I mean, if you want to know why the architecture in D.C. is so pagan-enriched, so occultic, well, these really break it down and name names. I mean, they get down to naming some names. I mean, other than names that you would know, like FDR and even Gandhi, that are in the latest ones. Manly P. Hall is a main focus in this, and I really want to go through who Manly P. Hall is and why he is so significant. In the Eye of the Phoenix, they go heavily into Nicholas Roche and who he was. And, of course, in the very first America's Secret Beginnings, the focus is really on Sir Francis Bacon and the New Atlantis. And like I said, these films are films that need to be watched by everyone out there. You may not agree with them 100%, but they give you a really great insight as to where our beginnings are and where our country may be headed towards in the future. And if anybody was tuning in last night, we had Mark Dice of the Resistance Manifesto on, and we took some calls at the very end. And this is another subject I want to get into with Chris Pinto. You know, a lot of these occultists actually believe that Lucifer is nothing more than an abstract idea, or, you know, the light, the illumination, learning technology, these, you know, esoteric ideas, I guess. Meanwhile, there is this other section of the occult that seems to believe that he's a physical being. So I want to get into that. I want to get into the term above, as above, so below. And, of course, we're going to be talking about Sirius the Dog Star. If all this is new, stay tuned. If it's not, I promise you there'll be some stuff you've never heard of before, especially if you haven't seen Eye of the Phoenix. Chris Pinto coming up next. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, Infowars.com, and PrisonPlanet.tv. Back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, and I am now joined by Chris Pinto, the writer and director of Secret Mysteries of America's Beginning series, The New Atlantis, Riddles in Stone, and, of course, the newest, Eye of the Phoenix. How are you tonight, Chris?
Oh, pretty good. How are you, Jason?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is probably the most extensive documentary series out there on the United States and its occult history. What motivated you to do this?
You know, it was something that I had studied for a number of years, and my partner, David Bay, over at Cutting Edge had studied for years. And I had done a series, I've been working on a series that deals with Bible prophecy and its fulfillment in the world today, and came across a lot of this information about the Great Atlantean Plan, as it's called by some researchers, where they talk about how what the secret societies are all ultimately doing is trying to rebuild the lost empire of Atlantis. Because their ancient mystery doctrines, all of these pagan occult doctrines that they believe in, they claim all originated from Atlantis. And so it's when America was discovered, they believed in that time that that this was the site, the physical site for Atlantis. So they weren't thinking, well, we need to go, scuba dive down in the water and go find Atlantis somewhere like we see on the Discovery Channel and that kind of thing. They believe this is it. This is the continent of Atlantis right here. And there are still New Agers to this day. We interview at least two of them who believe that even now. They believe that this is the site of the ancient Atlantean Empire. So the secret societies in England, under a guy named Sir Francis Bacon and his contemporary Dr. John Dee, they saw the New World as an opportunity to launch this whole esoteric commonwealth that they had envisioned and that they believed dated all the way back to the time of Plato. Plato was the one who had written the Atlantean dialogue. He had also, he was the one who had envisioned the perfect society in Plato's Republic. And so you see when the United States is founded, it's founded as a republic based on this Platonic idea. And in fact, all of these new governments that have been set up in preparation for the whole New World Order system, they've been about tearing down the old systems of government and setting up these new republics. That's why, you have the People's Republic of China, Soviet Republic, Republic of France, North Korea, and so on. And it's showing this common philosophy that they have all shared. Now, how it pertains to us in our day, one of the things that we make reference to in Secret Mysteries Part 1 is the 2005 inaugural address made by President George W. Bush that people might remember, where he says, in that speech, he says, when our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled. And so you ask the question, all right, what is the ancient hope that he's referring to? And if you study these secret groups, and of course Bush, as we all know, admitted to being a member of the Skull and Bones Society, that is certainly a haven for all of these same doctrines that was founded out of I believe a Masonic lodge, what they said, but nobody seems to know completely, but a group called the Skull in Germany by William Huntington Russell back in 1832. He had been introduced to this society there in Germany that had very definite links to the Bavarian Illuminist movement that had been launched in Bavaria by Adam Weishaupt. And Russell came to America to found this society at Yale, and the reason supposedly was to bring the arcane groups in America, the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians in particular, that had been somewhat divided by the American Revolution, to rejoin them to this European ideal that had been launched, really had been conceived by Bacon, was sort of picked up by the Bavarian Illuminati, who had a much more bloodthirsty view of it all. And then, of course, they launched the French Revolution, and then all of these revolutions that have brought us right up to this present day. In fact, all of these revolutions are talked about in the book Fire in the Minds of Men by Dr. James Billington. For those who don't know, Billington is the Librarian of Congress. I love pointing to his book because he's not a conspiracy writer. He's as official and historian as you could get. And Billington wrote this book where he's documenting in great detail all of these different revolutionary groups and talking about their connections, and he traces them all to Weishaupt's Illuminati in Bavaria. Well, Bush makes reference to this book in the same 2005 inaugural address. He says, we have lit a fire as well a fire in the minds of men. You know, it warms those who feel its power. It burns those who fight its progress. And one day, this untamed fire of freedom will reach the darkest corners of our world. All right.
And often when they're discussing that light, they're referring to Lucifer. And you know, Bush isn't the only one that talked about a new order of the ages. You know, a lot of people think, oh, well, that must be the Republicans, but